Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Got my Bible, again, with the scriptures. And I've got my coffee. We're in Genesis, chapter 16. So, get your Bibles out, read along, and let's get right down to it. And Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no child, and she had a Mitzrite female servant whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said to Abram, "See, Yahweh has kept me from bearing children. Please go in to my female servant. It might be that I am built up by her." And Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her female servant, the Mitzrite, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife. And Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan. And he went in to Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. And Sarai said to Abram, "My wrong be upon you. I gave my female servant into your bosom, and when she saw she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. Let Yahweh judge between you and me." And Abram said to Sarai, "See, your female servant is in your hand. Do to her what is good in your eyes." And Sarai treated her harshly, and she fled from her presence. And the messenger of Yahweh found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, by the spring on the way to Shur. And he said, "Hagar, Sarai's female servant, where have you come from, and where are you going?" And she said, "I am fleeing from the presence of Sarai, my mistress." And the messenger of Yahweh said to her, "Return to your mistress, and humble yourself under her hand." And the messenger of Yahweh said to her, "I am going to increase your seed greatly, too numerous to be counted." And the messenger of Yahweh said to her, "See, you are conceiving and bearing a son, and shall call his name Yishmael, because Yahweh has heard your affliction. And he is to be a wild man, his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him, and dwell over against all his brothers." And she called the name of Yahweh, who spoke to her, "You are the El who sees," for she said, "Even here I have seen after him who sees me." That is why the well was called Ber Lahai Roi. See, it is between Kadesh and Bered. And Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram called the name of his son, whom Hagar bore, Yishmael. And Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Yishmael to Abram. Short little chapter, but a whole lot happens there. Now, Abram has been told that he will have a child, and his descendants will be as numerous as the stars. And his wife was like, "Well, it ain't gonna happen to me, so maybe you're supposed to be with my servant." And it causes distress between the two women. This will be a theme for at least a good portion of the Old Testament. I'm still not done with the Old Testament. While multiple wives was allowed back then, it wasn't a sin or anything, it always caused problems. There was jealousy, there was mistrust, there was fighting and competition, and it always causes trouble. So it may have been allowed, but it always causes trouble. And that's not what either one of them were told to do. But that's what they did anyway. Chapter 17. And it came to be when Abram was 99 years old. Now, when Ishmael was born, he was 86. Now he's 99. Another 13 years later. And it came to be when Abram was 99 years old that Yahweh appeared to Abram and said to him, "I am El Shaddai. Walk before me and be perfect." And I gave my covenant between me and you, and shall greatly increase you. And Abram fell on his face, and Elohim spoke with him, saying, As for me, look, my covenant is with you, and you shall become a father of many nations. And no longer is your name called Abram, but your name shall be Abraham, because I shall make you a father of many nations. And I shall make you exceedingly fruitful, and make nations of you, and sovereigns shall come from you. And I shall establish my covenant between me and you and your seed after you in the generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be Elohim to you and your seed after you. And I shall give to you your seed after you the land of your sojournings, all the land of Canaan, as an everlasting possession, and I shall be their Elohim. And Elohim said to Abraham, As for you, guard my covenant, you and your seed after you throughout your generations. This is my covenant which you guard between me and you and your seed after you. Every male among you is to be circumcised. And you shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall become a sign of the covenant between me and you. And a son of 8 days is circumcised by you, every male in your generations. He who is born in your house, or bought with silver from any foreigner who is not of your seed. He who is born in your house, and he who is bought with you with your silver, has to be circumcised. So shall my covenant be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And an uncircumcised male who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, his life shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. And Elohim said to Abraham, As for Sarai your wife, do not call her Sarai, for Sarah is her name. And I shall bless her and give you a son by her. And I shall bless her, and she shall become nations. Sovereigns of peoples are to be from her. And Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and said in his heart, Is a child born to a man who is 100 years old? Or is Sarah, who is 90 years old, to bear a child? And Abraham said to Elohim, Oh, let Ishmael live before you. And Elohim said, No. Sarah, your wife, is truly bearing a son to you, and you shall call his name Yitzhak. Yitzhak. Hebrew names, man. Yitzhak. And I shall establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard you. See, I shall bless him, and shall make him fruitful, and greatly increase him. He is to bring forth 12 princes, and I shall make him a great nation. But my covenant I establish with Yitzhak, whom Sarah is to bear to you at this appointed time next year. And when he had ended speaking with him, Elohim went up from Abraham. And Abraham took Ishmael his son, and all those born in his house, and all those bought with his silver, every male among the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskins, that same day as Elohim had told him. And Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael, his son, was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised that same day. And all the men of the house, born in the house or bought with silver from a foreigner, were circumcised with him. That was the end of chapter 17. That's definitely a change, you know. Suddenly, everybody gets pieces of skin cut off. Probably not a good day for them, but takeaways from this chapter. It's all in God's time, not ours. Even if you know something will happen, you still don't know when. Because it's not for us. It's not our timing. It's in His timing. much to our dismay sometimes, because people they tend to be impatient. These newer generations are very much about instant gratification. I want it and I want it now. Imagine waiting for a child until you're 99 years old. Like, I could barely keep up with mine at my age. Whew, that had to be rough. But it's not about when we want something. Because when God does something, He puts so many different pieces together that they all need time to come together. And when you try and do it yourself, not the way you're supposed to, it's never as good as what God has planned. He brings better blessings than we can give ourselves. But anyway, chapter 18. And Yahweh appeared to him by the terebinth tree of Mamre, while he was sitting in the tent door in the heat of the day. So he lifted his eyes and looked, and saw 3 men standing opposite him. And when he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them, and bowed himself to the ground, and said, Yahweh, if I have now found favor in your eyes, please do not pass your servant by. Please let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. And let me bring a piece of bread, and refresh your hearts, and then go on, for this is why you have come to your servant. And they said, do as you have said. So Abraham ran into the tent to Sarah, and said, hurry, make ready 3 measures of fine flour, knead it, and make cakes. And Abraham ran to the herd, took a tender and good calf, and gave it to a young man, and he hurried to prepare it. And he took curds of milk and the calf which he had prepared, and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree as they ate. He took curds and milk and the calf which he had prepared, and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree as they ate. Just keep that in mind when we get to the end of the chapter. And they said to him, where is Sarah your wife? And he said, see, in the tent. And he said, I shall certainly return to you according to the time of life, and see, Sarah your wife is to have a son. And Sarah was listening in the tent door which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, well advanced in age, and Sarah was past the way of women. And Sarah laughed within herself, saying, after I have grown old, shall I have pleasure, my master being old too? And Yahweh said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh, saying, shall I truly have a child since I am old? Is any matter too hard for Yahweh? At the appointed time I am going to return to you, according to the time of life, and Sarah is to have a son. But Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. And he said, no, but you did laugh. And the men rose up from there and looked towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them to send them away. And Yahweh said, shall I hide from Abraham what I am doing? Since Abraham is certainly going to become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I have known him, so that he commands his children and his household after him to guard the way of Yahweh, to do righteousness and right ruling, so that Yahweh brings to Abraham what he has spoken to him. And Yahweh said, because the outcry against Sodom and Amorrah is great, and because their sin is very heavy, I am going down now to see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry against it that has come to me. And if not, I know. So the men turned away from there and went toward Sodom, but Yahweh stood still before Abraham. I need more coffee. Hold on. And Abraham drew near and said, would you also destroy the righteous with the wrong? Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city. Would you also destroy the place and not spare it for the 50 righteous that were in it? Far be it from you to act in this way, to slay the righteous with the wrong, so that the righteous should be as the wrong. Far be it from you. Does the judge of all the earth not do right? And Yahweh said, if I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I shall spare all the place for their sakes. And Abraham answered and said, look, please, who am I but dust and ashes have taken it upon myself to speak to Yahweh? Suppose there are 5 less than the 50 righteous. Would you destroy all of the city for lack of 5? And he said, if I find there 45, I do not destroy it. And he spoke to him yet again and said, suppose there are 40 found. And he said, I would not do it for the sake of 40. And he said, let not Yahweh be displeased, and yet let me speak. Suppose there are found 30. And he said, I would not do it if I found there 30 there. And he said, look, please, I have taken it upon myself to speak to Yahweh. Suppose there are found 20. And he said, I would not destroy it for the sake of 20. And he said, let not Yahweh be displeased, and let me speak only this time. Suppose there are found 10. And he said, I would not destroy it for the sake of 10. And Yahweh went away as soon as he had ended speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. So, we get Yahweh in the flesh, spirit form maybe, on earth, visible, with 2 others. Wonder who those are. But we get a glimpse here of what is coming with Sodom and Gomorrah. And, even if there are only 10 righteous, he would not destroy the city for the sake of the 10. In a whole city. Would save it for 10 righteous people. Which, there's not. There was one, which we'll find out later, but probably next week. Let's see. Yeah, we'll find out next week. If you don't already know. But I still wonder, who are the 3? Anytime that there is destruction, there is a remnant that is saved. A small piece. Like with Noah. But we'll see that again, too. But life always goes on, you find the righteous, the ones that will do as they're instructed. Doesn't mean that, doesn't mean they're perfect. Noah was a drunk, and look what he accomplished. And we'll see some major flaws later on. The curds and milk served with a calf. Served to Yahweh. So why is it that kosher means, for one thing, you can't mix milk and meat? Dairy and meat served together to Yahweh himself. Yeah. Read your Bibles. Don't trust another man or woman's interpretation. Read it for yourself. Don't even trust my interpretations, because I don't know anything. I'm not a scholar. I'm not a priest. I'm not a pastor. I'm not a reverend. I'm not even a teacher. So don't take my word for it. Just read along. Read it for yourself. Yeah. Everyone's got different interpretations. And if you pray before you read, well, I mean, you don't have to, but a lot of us do, to show us what, show us some truth in it, show us meanings, because some things can be taken more than one way, and some things have been changed over time by different interpretations. Like, remember, before any of this was written down, it was oral tradition, and we don't know what was changed. We don't. So I suggest praying before you read, so that he can show you the truth and learn it for yourself. Anyway, I've got on long enough, so have a wonderful day. Thanks for coming along with me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Shalom.